don't you dare go out there and sell that gold and silver that you bought back a few years ago when you could still afford it, because it is going to go through the roof, exactly as Mr. Fromm told me. And they let me know that their currency is gold and silver, the only thing I could depend on. And they wanted me, if I wanted to save my dinner table, that I should do it. Well, Sean, I just got so much to say today. I don't know where to go, but you go ahead, and maybe I'm talking too much. Maybe you should pose a few things there.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I didn't want to jump in and interrupt. Well, Pastor Williams, one of the reasons I wanted to get in touch with you and ask you to come on the program is because we're fast approaching the 2-year anniversary of your statement and essentially your prediction that was shared with you by your sources that, quote, within 2 years, you will not recognize America. And you said that on October 20th, 2009. You also said that the elite will make you so poor you will be unable to fight back. And sir, for the past year and a half, we haven't necessarily seen all those pieces fall into place on the surface, because we've seen the POMO activities of the Fed, we've seen the Dow go up, and everybody's fat and happy in this country. But now just recently, things really appear to be falling apart. And I just want your take as we come up on this 2-year anniversary of your prediction. Sir, the end could come like a thief in the night, couldn't it?
It could happen very rapidly. You're exactly right. They put all the pieces together over a period of time. They do it very subtly. They do have some timelines. One of the timelines is the end of 2012. But let me give one of the pieces to the puzzles that you're just talking about. I remember the words so well of Mr. Ken Fromm back about, just before the health care program was actually voted on by Congress. And I was on the phone with him one day, and I said, Ken, what do you think about the health care program? He said, health care program? I said, yes, the health care program is about to be presented before Congress. He said, Chaplain, that's not a health care program. And I said this on some talk shows. You might have heard it also, Sean. But he said, this is not a health care program. I said, Ken, what is it? He said, Chaplain, this is total control of the people of the United States of America. And when that document was finally voted on by Congress, never having been read by a single congressman nor the president, oh, by the way, that document was written by the elite. Not a single congressman had read it before it was voted on. The president never read it. It was written by the elite, and it is the ultimate final total control factor. And this doctor said to me on the phone as we were going over his program that I'm to be on Sunday, he said, Chaplain, I have just gotten it. And I said, you've just gotten what? He said, I've just gotten the instrument. And I said, well, tell me what you're talking about. He said, it's about the size of a cell phone. He said, all of the doctors in America will eventually be getting them. He said, I have already received mine. And I said, what are you going to do with it? He said, well, in 2012, when the health care program officially goes into force, he said, a patient comes into my office. And he said, I'm sitting there with them, and I've just made a diagnosis as to their case. He said, I am required by the health care bill, the Obamacare bill, so to speak. He said, I'm required to put in this little instrument that I have already received from Homeland Security. I am required to type in the code for my analysis of what is wrong with this person. As a doctor. Now, this is an MD, private practice, and he said, I'm required to send this through this little instrument to wherever it goes with Homeland Security. And he said, while I'm still sitting there with the patient, they will instantaneously send me back a response telling me, he said, I must tell that person what I must prescribe. Homeland Security is ordering me at what I must prescribe for that person in light of my diagnosis of what that problem is. Do you realize how they could get rid of the unwanted so very easily with this method? And he said that he asked a congressman after he received this little instrument, he said, suppose he said, I've been a practicing physician for over 20 years. He said, suppose I don't agree with what you say I must do for this patient, and I decide not to follow your orders. they said you'll automatically be fined $5,000.
So this is absolute fascist, total tyrannical control.
Yes, and then he said, suppose, he said, okay, suppose I do go ahead and pay the $5,000. He said, suppose I decide in the best interest of my patient that your prescription is not correct. The second time, what's going to happen to me as a private practice physician of over 20 years? He said, you'll be thrown into federal prison.
Yeah, this is the way it's going, folks, and this is why we have truth tellers on like Pastor Lindsey Williams. Pastor Williams, if you don't mind, maybe we can get back to what's happening overseas, because I spoke with Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster briefly this morning, and I wanted to talk to him a little bit about what we're seeing in Greece, because it pertains to so many of the things that you've said. And Bob Chapman says that he believes Greece is going to default, as he predicted a year and a half ago, and this will spread and take banks and the euro down with the default. So, sir, my question to you is, because you've said that the euro will collapse before the dollar, and when it does, folks will have a couple of weeks to get out of all paper assets, because then the dollar will fall. Are you sticking with that prediction? Is that something we all need to be very aware of?
Yes, very definitely. In fact, more so than ever. If it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. I hope that you will say that over and over and over and over. Yes, the euro is going to fall first. I was told that it'll be one European country after the other will default until the euro and the European Union are in such a collapsed position that they'll have no choice but to render the euro worthless. At that point, you have somewhere in the matter of days, not months, maybe weeks, but not months. You have only a matter of days to get out of every piece of paper you've got. Now, let me try to explain what I'm speaking of. I'm talking about Federal Reserve notes. I'm talking about Treasury bills. I'm speaking of your retirement, your 401k, your IRA. But, of course, you can't get out that quickly. So you're going to lose it, and they know this. You have a matter of days. I urge, and I'm begging, and I'm pleading after what I've heard in the past few days, I'm pleading people to begin right now. It may already be too late, but I'm begging people to begin right now to separate yourself from paper of every kind, no matter what it may be. Yes, I still stick by the prediction, and I believe that it could be just as close as Bob Chapman says it is. Bob and I are in complete agreement, Sean.
Well, thanks for that, sir. Let me ask you this then, and help us understand maybe the bigger picture, because a think tank in Europe called Open Europe has just concluded and written a paper that after looking at the balance sheet of the European Central Bank, they've concluded that the ECB is essentially insolvent, and if confidence is lost in the euro, it could go into a death spiral, just like Lehman Brothers did, because of phony accounting. So knowing that the central banks, including our own Federal Reserve, are so debt-burdened and their paper charades at this point, my question to you, sir, is how will the elite maintain control? Is it truly the most powerful families at the top of the pyramid that run the World Bank, the IMF, and essentially at the very top of the pyramid, the Bank of International Settlements? Is that how they will remain in control when all these other central banks collapse?
How they're going to remain in control, I'm not quite sure. They haven't said what they will do in case there are riots. They don't want riots. The last thing in this world that they want is for the American people to wake up and take action and do something about it. They will do everything in their power to keep that from happening. In fact, I remember when I was with the elite, and I tried to analyze them the best I could. Keep in mind that I'd been a pastor of a church for 12 years prior to going to Alaska as a missionary, so I'd done a lot of counseling. I had a church of about 400 people, and every kind of situation imaginable, so I knew how to somewhat read people as a result of my years of experience. And I remember that one of the only things I ever saw the elite fear was the people waking up. The fact that there's more of us than there are of them. Now, they do not want riots. They will back off. They'll extend their program. They'll extend their timelines. They'll do anything they can to keep that from happening. But keep in mind what was said to me that I began giving about 8-9 months ago, and this is just an illustration of how they will do this, I think, from what I've been told. The expression was made one day, there will be no shortage food on the grocery store shelves. And I couldn't understand this because, as you know, most of the survivalists and preparedness people are saying, you won't be able to buy food. Well, you won't. That's right, but not for the reason which most of them are saying. They said there will be no shortage of food and water, but you won't be able to afford it. In other words, there will be no shortage, but you'll go hungry. And I said, what do you mean? And they said the currency will be worth so little that you will not be able to purchase it. At that point, what people are going to do, I'm not quite sure, and how they will keep them under control. But I'm sure that the elite will find some way to do everything they can. But this thing could happen so rapidly and so quickly. Don't, for a moment's time, discount the fact that they could pull the cord very quickly, because they do have some timelines that they've given me for the end of 2012 that they fully intend to do what they're going to do by that period of time. But keep in mind, they do not want routes under any circumstance. I think this is the reason that they've backed off on fuel prices just recently for just a short period of time. But that doesn't mean a thing. It only means that they saw the American people waking up too much, and they backed off for about the past month, and they'll start right back up again later on this summer and into the fall, with taking the gasoline prices exactly where they want it, John.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about the year 2012. Is the year 2012 important to the elite?
2012, for some reason, I don't know why, it has nothing to do with the Mayan calendar. They've never brought this up. But it has something to do with their personal timeline. And this 2-year period that Mr. Fromm gave me back, that you referred to a moment ago, it kind of winds up somewhere close to the end of 2011, beginning with 2012. And keep in mind, they don't always accomplish what they want in the timeline that they want it done, but they will try. And if they don't, then they will back up a little ways and then start all over again and do what they want to do. 2012 definitely appears to be the time that the dollar will be dead. Now, I was on a very prominent radio talk show just the other day. If I mentioned the talk show host, you'd know him immediately. And he said to me, Chaplain, I don't think that the American dollar is going to survive to the end of 2012. He said, I think that you've given people too much time. I said, well, I have to stick with the timeline that I have heard from them. The timeline that I was given was for the dollar itself to be dead. Now, not non-existent. This is one thing I also learned from the elite over these many years that I've been dealing with them, and that is you've got to listen very carefully to their wording and how they say it. He did not say that the dollar will be non-existent by the end of 2012. He said the dollar will be dead by the end of 2012. In other words, it will be so little in value as far as purchasing power is concerned that for all practical purposes it'll be worthless. And they want to do this so that they can have you begging and pleading for a new currency, which of course the World Bank will bring in. So by the end of 2012 seems to be a timeline. It's the health care program. And you remember the statement that Mr. Fromm made to me. He said, Chaplain, this is not a health care bill. He said, this is total control of the people of the United States of America.